little girl was playing in the sand by the ocean, and despite the perfect scenery, she was bored. You see, she was known for her vivid imagination, which often got in the way of schooling the fuck out of her in order to make her fit in our little box. She had been secretly praying night after night that something extraordinary would happen in her life to strip her away from the everyday regularity that we adults depend on to survive. While peering out into the ocean, on this day her prayers were answered, because cutting through the water in her direction she saw a dolphin. This dolphin must have been tangled in seaweed or some netting that trailed behind it, and it was coming to shore for a helping human hand. She had heard that this happens often and was very eager to share a connection with such a wonderful friend from the sea. But as it approached the shore, it stopped just short of her eyes' clarity, and she called out, "It's okay to come close, I want to help you." To her amazement, right next to this dolphin, a woman's head popped up out of the water and looked at the girl. With a sigh of relief, the girl asked, "Are you here to help the dolphin?" Seeing that this little girl had no fear and was pouring with love and curiosity, the woman began to emerge from the water. Quickly occurred that this woman was in fact what she thought was the dolphin, and as she realized this, there was an audible snap, a noise that the girl assumed must have been the woman's bathing suit strap being pulled like a rubber band and released, clapping against her skin. As the woman got closer and began to climb to shore, the girl noticed several attributes that did not add up. The woman's skin was a glossy bluish gray. What she thought was seaweed or a net dragging behind was in fact her hair, and most fascinating was that this woman did not seem to have elbows or knees, but instead her arms and legs were like that of a squid with no suckers and equally smooth fingers. Just as she noticed the face had no eyelids, her awe was interrupted by a series of clicks and pops followed by a sharp whistle that came from her mouth consisting of a beautiful row of small pointed teeth. And then the snap. The noise of her bathing suit clapping against her skin was actually two flaps just above her bare chest, just beneath her collarbones. These flaps opened and collapsed shut, creating this crisp noise. Despite this woman's face seeming more frog-like than human, this little girl now knew what she was looking at and was not shy to announce to the being, "You're an angel. You are a mermaid. I have never seen anything like you and I love you so much." With no hesitation, the girl ran up and put her hands on the woman of the sea, continuing to exclaim out loud, "You are not a fish. You are smooth and graceful. I have to get my mother to see you. Will you wait here while I go get her?" There was another series of clicks and pops that could only mean one thing. "Of course I will wait here for you." Running to her mother, who was working on her tan, the girl exclaimed, "Mother," but she said mother instead of mom because she had a bad case of being British. She said, "Mother, you have got to see this. There is a mermaid." The mom got up, expecting to partake in another one of her child's frankly overtly imagined games with a slight disgruntlement. But as she came around the bend, she got a glimpse of a wounded animal stuck on the beach. She said, "We need to go get your father. He will know what to." Before she could finish her sentence, her entire world came collapsing in on her in a moment that would practically ruin her life, haunting her until the day she died. Because as she uttered those words, this assumed wounded animal heard and turned its head and made direct eye contact with the mother. Again, we have to remember that this is a mother, not a mom, because of all the British. This eye contact was not like that of a dog, but instead the paralyzing stare that can only come from a person. The mother was completely frozen in absolute terror when the unthinkable happened. A series of clicks and pops followed by a sharp whistle made it clear to the mother that despite the face being more like a frog than that of a dolphin, that this was a hideous monster, a creature from the depths of the abyss and a nightmare to even lay eyes on. As the clicks and pops woke her from her paralyzed fear, the mother grabbed her daughter's arm, a grab that would later leave bruises, and yanked her daughter away in such panic that it dislocated decapitated the young girl's shoulder. The adrenaline hit the girl too. Unaware of her new injury, she cried out, "What is it, mother? What is it?" The mother cried, panicked, "It is a monster. It's a demon. Get away, run." Understanding that her mother knew best, the girl and the British mother ran their little asses off back to the human streets where they were safe from this angelic mermaid, this beautiful abomination that should be hunted down and killed, or at least locked in a cage and studied for the heinous crime of kinda looking like a frog. My viewers will know that my favorite part of this story is not the cryptoid that it revolves around, but instead the vast difference in reaction between the mother and the little girl. Because living in regret today, this now old woman and her adult daughter do not skip an hour of each day without wondering what they could have learned on that fateful day that changed their life forever if they had just sat down in the sand and trusted the instincts of the once little girl who seemed to manifest through invitation via prayer a message from a being that they could just not handle. This is the unfortunate difference between children and adults in today's age. To the little girl, this miracle was no surprise. After all, we are here. Why wouldn't there be somebody else? To the mother, this miracle was a nightmare. After all, we are here, and that is the finished product. Anything else to impose on that reality must be demonic. What if I told you that this problem was not limited to today's age? What if I told you that this has happened before? And as uncomfortable as it sounds, what if I told you that the initiation into the mysteries of all ages since antiquity hinged solely on the ability to confront this fear? And lastly, what if I showed you proof that our current society and all of our technological comforts are in debt to a people called the Dogon? People who had the balls to look one of these nomos square in the face and say, "Teach us to build society in your image."
Hello, Joseph. So, for everybody out there,
Hello.
this is Joseph with Library of the Untold, and came across his videos on YouTube and really enjoyed the content. I think the reason I wanted to reach out to him was because we're living in an age where everybody's being demonized for being a conspiracy theorist for one thing or another, and quite frankly, it's a made-up term that was sensationalized by the FBI after this assassination of JFK. So,
Yeah.
really, what it is a smear term at the end of the day. But we shouldn't
It's a
be
slur,
demonized for
bro.
asking questions. And I think you're yeah, 100% cis and conspiracy theorist. Two words I do not like.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I think you ask a lot of questions of yourself, of the universe, and I think you present it for the people in a real clear way. So, I guess right off the bat, what got you interested in the esoteric and the mystical and the spiritual and all this, and how'd you get so deep into it? Because you're a
Man,
master at your craft. You know your stuff.
it's very funny that you ask me an origin question like that right now, because literally this morning I got a Facebook inbox from a girl that I went to third grade with, and she saw my channel or whatever, and she goes, "You might want to see this," and she sent me a picture of me in third grade watching her grandparents from Loch Ness, who came, to visit their granddaughter. And that was the first time that I ever heard about the Loch Ness monster, was in third grade. And that photograph existed of me listening to them talk. I was absolutely fascinated by this. I'm like, there's monsters in the world, and these two people seen it. And that's when I kind of started to discover, other things paranormal, Atlantis, things like that. Atlantis was kind of the runner up right after the Loch Ness monster and cryptozoology, and and as that went on, I started getting into like black metal, as you do, and that has many like occult themes to it, I suppose. And not to my surprise, I should say, the two things really go together exactly well. To me, the alien abduction phenomenon ties right into Gnosticism. I mean, hand in hand, they're literally talking about the same thing.
Mhm.
Cryptozoological evidence kind of rails against mainstream science, which is forbidden from doing and saying certain things, especially in military aspects where you and I, the people who pay taxes, we pay them to do the scientific research, are not allowed to see the research. And that kind of, took me into ancient religions. And then of course into the warm, loving arms of Jesus Christ, which is right where you go after black metal, obviously. Uh, and it all from the dark to the light, all just kind of became a big yin yang for me. And I have eventually went on to write Book of Wonderful Suffering for my son, which kind of summarized everything that I had learned in my adolescence to be passed on to him. And the book kind of accidentally got published. And then we started a YouTube channel to talk about the book. And then that happened to go crazy as it is right now. We've been at it for about a year and a half, and right now we're getting about 2,000 subscribers a week, which I didn't expect even a little bit. And currently, what I'm attempting to do is not let any of that hay fever get in the way of the studies and the research, basically. Keep it traditional.
Damn. I just love that so much. Right down to the cryptids. Third grade for me is when I've started getting similarly fascinated. Chupacabra, Mongolian deathworm, those were two really big ones for me. But
Right.
that aspect of wanting to leave behind something for your son and the next generation, that's kind of something I feel with this channel. My little sister, she's in second, third grade. She's not old enough for political talks or the kind of things that I discuss yet. But I'm hoping if the YouTube gods don't strike me down, that one day
Right.
she can kind of come in and be like, wait, what the hell was my brother saying about aliens and the universe
Right.
and the politics and the government? Like, I think that's really important that we have to put our work into the next generation and put good shit into their minds, because we live under a regime and a system right now that's trying to pollute it down to the point
Right.
where their brains aren't even capable of questioning.
That's the
So I really
idea.
appreciate you doing that.
Right. And that's exactly what they want. And as you might know, the educational system was designed specifically for that. Yet we still keep paying for it, and we still keep going into it. We pour our children into the education system, willfully ignorant, knowing that it's meant to turn them into factory workers. And it's been proven. And the people who invented the schooling system, their words are declassified, and I don't think they ever were classified in the first place. So it's no secret that we are meant to pay for these things and not see them. That's what our jobs were meant to do. And that's a really toxic cycle that society has right now that is, believe it or not, very new. We are the first human beings on the planet to no, I realized that there was kings and there was peasants once upon a time. They had to do the crops and they had to, feed the kings and the knights and all that stuff. But this is more weird, and specifically weird the way that we set it up, because we're not just feeding the kings anymore. We're allowing them to explore the universe, explore the psyche, and explore these new realms of science and religion that are tied together, while literally being told that we're not allowed to see the results of those things because of various reasons, whether it be concerns over public public fear, or military. In the case of military, it's safety. They have a million reasons for us not to see what they are doing. And it gets to the point it makes you wonder how many false flag attacks does it take to keep us in fear enough to say, okay, we don't want to see what you're working on with our money.
Mm-hmm. And there's just so much chaos too, because I mean, for those who don't know, less than a year ago, it might have even been a couple months ago, they just casually announced Ebola back in the Obama era was released from a lab, in the chaos of everything going on.
Right.
who gave a shit about that with everything going on at the current moment? Like by the time they
Right.
reveal their hand, it's too late.
Right. Well, look at whenever the declassified CIA documents, well, when the CIA documents became declassified on Project Stargate and the Gateway process and MK Ultra,
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the times that those were silently released, there's convenient distractions right there ready to go. It seems designed to me.
And I think the thing is no matter how much they want to try to hide the other side's breaking through. I'm someone
Yeah.
who's had plenty of psychedelic experiences, and I love sharing my experiences and hearing experiences from other people. A
Yeah.
reoccurring factor
Same.
these past year, hell yeah, like it's so fun. I feel like because we're all connected, so like you can learn from somebody else's experience. Like the universe is a
Right.
great vast place, but it's that connectivity that helps us grow. But the amount of
Right.
people in the last 2 to 3 years who have very specifically been seeing imagery of Jesus Christ or the Buddha or some sort of religious messianic figure, and very often they're interchanging. They're all coming in and out, and it's all
Right.
showing that oneness. It's all showing the it doesn't necessarily matter which ideology you're following, so long as you're following the path of the universe, so long as you're giving credit to when the universe like I recognize a man named Jesus Christ came down and died on the cross for my sins. Now, my interpretation in the modern era, I believe a lot of that was interdimensional. I believe with the Gospel of Judah that we see a lot of things that suggest that he came from another side, the other side of the veil. And we're given pieces to play with that over time, but it's the demonization and the destruction that's really bringing everything down. And especially right now, what we're dealing with in the United States is they're trying to pit the extreme left versus the religious right, and the religious is getting very scared off to the point where anything spiritual, esoteric, anything like that is now automatically being classified with Satanism and demonology. And for certain subjects, to an extent, it is worth diving into and researching. But now the things are starting to become convoluted again, kind of like it's the 60s or the 70s, where I feel like we're starting to get to another satanic panic where the satanic elements do need to be exposed and the darkness does need to be exposed. But people are going to be willing to destroy a lot of good people and a lot of good systems and beliefs and faiths in order to achieve what they believe is the right one, as we've
Right.
done for thousands of years.
That could certainly turn into chaos, but I got a gut feeling that what might end up happening is that we're going to realize that we're actually arguing the same argument on both sides. You'll because you mentioned, now I don't get into politics at all, but from what I gather, the right is religious and the left is spiritual. And at which point I can't help but feel like, well, how much more blind can we possibly be to be arguing over something that is indeed exactly the same? These are different personifications of universal law. You can follow it if you want, and it doesn't matter who your favorite mascot is to follow it. It might be Jesus Christ, and that's awesome. But in the case of Terence McKenna, it was a mushroom. However, if you're from India, that might be Krishna. How naive it is for somebody to say that that person following Krishna is following a demonic path because they weren't introduced to their particular favorite form of savior. And the same kind of goes for me. And I love to hang out in the comments section on YouTube. It's a pastime of me. I really enjoy speculating with the community on YouTube. A lot of YouTubers don't, they avoid the comment section because there's mean comments in there. Those don't bother me one bit. But I do enjoy conversing with people. What I've noticed is that with Christians, I can come out and I could say point blank, let's say hypothetically, right? I say that I follow the path of Jesus Christ. He died on a cross for our sins. And this is symbolic of how we should live our lives, hypothetically, right? Somebody, a Christian, will get on there and say, this is demonic. This is, what are you saying? And I would never respond, but because I know what their answer is. If I say, what do you mean it's demonic? their answer would be something along the lines of, well, you didn't learn your Jesus from my pastor and my background, so it must be demonic. So now we're getting to the point where splitting hairs, not just between these savior figures, but we're taking individual savior figures and splitting them off into different categories. And the divide and conquer is working, dude. It's you got Christians fighting against Christians over whose church has the correct message from Jesus, not realizing that everyone's interpretation of it is entirely subjective to them. And there's no way around that. Even if your pastor is the one and only dude who understands what's going on, once he tells you you're gonna have a different one now. Congratulations, you just started a new religion. It's like, until we decide to, like Enoch, you know, this congealing of all three things, science, theology, and I mean, I guess I would say politics in there somewhere, but that's the wrong word for it because that word has been tainted. But what it means is to create law, you know? So what we end up doing is we bend
human structure.
the word. Yeah, we bend it and we make laws to, you know, benefit certain people using that. So that's why politics is the wrong word for it. But definitely uniting certain elements of belief systems and morals is important without passing along this sort of a judgment of feeling like you have the one and only true idea of what's going on. You know, it's naive to think that way.
Really, ultimately, to humble yourself and to say that you are just a human, and really, until you die, and probably not even then, you will just never know. So to sit
and
there
maybe
and
not even then, bro. Maybe not even then, because I mean, the reincarnation thing goes pretty deep. You know, it was part of the first religions, as far as we can tell. And it's certainly not excluded from the Bible. The Bible talks about reincarnation too, actually a few times. However, if you get somebody who reads the Bible, they'll say that part's, or that's demonic or whatever. You can bring it up to them, say, hey, it's right here in the Bible. And it doesn't really fit their paradigm, so it'll be demonic, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just so crazy of world we live in. Oh, such a sweet baby. Oh my goodness.
My baby.
What's his name or her name? Paul?
This is Paul. Yeah. It was Cleocatra, but then we found balls right here. And then it became Paul, Pawl, as my son's idea. And Dr. Pickle's PhD is around here somewhere.
I love it. I respect that. Man, you're just so right on the religious elements and the nitpicking, and you're saying you don't spend any time in politics or pay much attention to that. For someone who's like gone into the most extreme elements and been in Antifa and been in the riots and been there in the heat of it, it really is the same for extremist groups, because so many people take these things. I call Antifa, for example, a spiritual trap. People who are meant to wake up and to ask the questions, it took them and it put them through a grinder, and it broke their spirit, left them shattered. A lot of them are alcoholics or drug addicts. A lot of them are committing suicide. A lot of them have gone to jail or are going to jail. And it's a nightmare. The fight's just been taken out of them. The questions and the eagerness to want to be a part of life has been taken out of them. But so for a lot of these people, they put all this religious expectation into these movements, and it does exactly what you said. The way I explain it is there's not just one Antifa. In this town, there's probably 20 or 30 Antifas, because everybody in Antifa fucking hates each other and they all factioned off. Because, no, you're interpreting the religion the wrong way. We're going to take the religion over here and we're going to plant our cross over here. Or you're being homophobic, sexist, or racist. We don't approve of what your version of Antifa is doing. We're going to go start Trantifa over here. No peace police or any of these other factions. So when you put the religious element into human elements like that in different political groups, it has the exact same effect, and it gets scary.
Because that's where did you say Trantifa?
Oh yeah, it's a real thing. I was talking with Buck Angel about that. It blew his mind too. He was like, "What the hell?"
What is going on?
We're Marxism.
The way, and it's the same for mythology, education, and science. It's exactly that. I've always said, science that can't be questioned is religion. And what we have today in the scientific community is quite literally a dogma. Because if you are, because, if you're in church and you've got the wrong question, especially back in the day, you got executed. But nowadays, you might get kicked out of the church. Well, if you're a scientist and you find out that plasma might be conscious and aware of itself, well, you don't want you can put out your scientific report on its temperature and its fluctuations and all that stuff, but you leave out the most exciting part, because you don't want to risk becoming blackballed by the scientific community, and that shrinks. It shrinks down more and more. So you got to get the peer review thing going and all that. But what ends up happening is they don't release that little nugget that they found out, so that disappears. Meanwhile, this dude's doing a scientific experiment as well, and he comes up with a separate nugget that would complement this nugget very much, but this nugget never came up. So this nugget's got nowhere to go. And now there's two nuggets that are not existing in the world. So what we're going to do is keep just observing and regurgitating and confirming the same information over and over again. Meanwhile, the military industrial complex is thriving with new technology and scientific breakthroughs that we are not allowed to see. And if we speculate at them, then we get our degrees taken away. It's not a good system.
Speaking of military testing technology, I kind of want to get your perspective on this. So this is the closest I've ever come to a UFO encounter. It's not UFO, but just as far as seeing something crazy that at the time was unexplainable that I now think is explained. So I lived in South Texas during the Obama era, and I don't know how much you know about this, but Operation Jade HELM was going off.
Yeah.
And essentially, so you know about that, right? Essentially, where they're playing. Okay. So I'll give a brief just for the audience, and I'll clip this out with a woman who knows a lot more than me. It's really informative. But the military was playing with AI battle tactics, and there was paratroopers falling out of the sky near Austin, Texas, all the way near down Gonzales. There was, parades of military vehicles and soldiers, and they were doing all sorts of training exercises. I think there was like mock neighborhoods or neighborhoods in development that they were actually dropping into, and they were training for tactical use on U.S. soil. And a lot of the AI algorithm systems were meant to detect social patterns and basically meant to detect how humans would behave to social trends and kind of how to corral them and how to, kind of spot where they're going. Predictive technology, essentially. But another thing they were fucking with was Tesla technology. So one night I'm out with my stepmom. I could have the dates wrong. I think I'm probably 16 or 17 at this point, and it's close to midnight. We go down to the HEBs, and we pull up to the house, and there's just lightning happening in the distance, right? And just keeps hitting in the same place over and over, and it's kind of like in a cone shape, and it's just coming down and striking, and it just keeps coming down the same place, and it looked like it had to be like maybe 30-40 miles away up, I think probably towards the Gonzales area. I'll put some stuff on here to map it out, and I'll maybe even do an illustration. But the thing that made it so real was it got fucking boring. It happened for over an hour. We were sitting on the hood of the car watching it, and we're like, damn, do we want to, like, we got dinner to make still. We still got all these groceries, but, like, we know we're never going to see this again, but it just keeps going. So this one thing you're never supposed to see in your entire life, lightning hitting the same place twice, we watched it happen hundreds of times just out in the field in South Texas. And my theory on that is I think what I was seeing was lightning rod technology, which I believe is in coordination with Tesla technology, if I'm not mistaken. I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about that.
Well, right now, I'm kind of in the middle of A New Science of Heaven by Robert Temple. And he talks about plasma and lightning quite a bit, and about the sentience involved, which I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier. Ball lightning was a myth once upon a time. It no longer is, a lot like many things that we have that start out as myths and then end up to be reality. But
can you explain ball lightning real quick? Do you mean like an actual ball of lightning?
A ball of lightning, right?
Okay.
So Ball lightning has been observed mimicking behaviors of airliners, going through solid iron walls completely without changing its form, traversing itself, right angles, merging together with each other in a way of mating, finding
Is
each
this
other
the
when put in
white
a vacuum.
energy? Oh, sorry. Is this the white
No,
energy forms that they've like caught near planes? Kind of, they'll go elongated,
yeah,
and then they're balls, and they're like kind of opaque in a kind of way.
right. It could be white, yellow, orange, red. A lot of UFO sightings are ball lightning. But that's not an explanation, by the way. It actually deepens the mystery because it's one thing to say, oh, that UFO must have been ball lightning, and then you dismiss it. But then you say, well, wait a second. The ball lightning was literally moving around to its own accord, going up a brick wall and then circling around a tree and then taking off. It's like they do these little dances and spectacles that they don't follow. They're not following the wind. They're not following gravity. They're not following electromagnetic lines of the earth. They are completely on their own accord doing their own thing. It's by all means what you would consider to be sentient. So this idea was started out with the Kordasev clouds that they discovered. I think it was like in the 1950s or something like that, and it became really like a big deal. Of course, this was at the time classified military technology or scientific research, and they set off these atomic bombs in the stratosphere in the 1950s or 60s just to toy with this idea. What they didn't realize that they were doing is they were ripping a hole in the ozone layer that became what we know today as the hole in the fucking ozone layer. And it was a military experiment. That is now, again, that's one of those things that's declassified now, but nobody knows about it. But they were setting off atomic bombs in the upper atmosphere to see, you know, what plasma would do, how it would react to it.
And there's
And
footage of that too. It's like fireworks. It's like something
right.
out of a Marvel movie, like
Oh,
portals
it's
and
amazing.
ripples in the sky.
Right. And have you seen sprites at all? Those they're blood red. They look like veins coming out of the clouds and shit.
Oh wait, is that the one that sometimes they're attached to a ship? It's kind of like tendrils of light coming out, and
Yes.
then there's an object that's being dragged. I saw someone's illustration of that recently. That's actually going to my next alien video. I've been wondering about that for a minute. It's almost like a ship connected to a wire or a stick and another side of the reality, and somebody's just kind of holding it into our reality and moving it around. It's
It does.
very odd.
It really looks like that. And they're like 40 miles long is how big these things are. And they occur very
Jesus
quickly.
Christ.
Yeah. So whenever you put all this together and then you take it back to mythology, which I always like to do, then you got like, so say the book of Moses, where we think that Moses talked to a burning bush, whereas that's not at all what the fucking Bible says. The Bible says that Moses spoke to that which was like a bush, which seems a lot like that cloud the sprites we were talking about. And the voice that occurred from it was not God. It didn't say that in the Bible either. It was a messenger angel or angle of light representing natural law. So we have what seems to be an ancient form of communion with plasma. And then you have, the parting of the Red Sea. Whenever they went down into the Red Sea to look for evidence of this biblical event, they found it, and they found a lot of it. They found, footprints. They found chariots, wheels, horse bones, all that shit. And
just Google Earth it. There's a whole line going across the damn Red Sea, like something just came and shot a line across it. It's a perfect line you can see from the sky.
Yeah. Well, and you know what they found on that exact line in the sediment below the sea? They found oh my goodness, what's the word for it? Vitrification. Vitrification happens when lightning hits sand and turns it to glass. That entire line down the middle of the Red Sea where they find all those bones and everything is vitrified stone. It's glass down there. That means not only did the parting of the Red Sea did happen, but it happened due to an enormous plasma blast, like you saw with your mom. several times in the same location over and over and over again. It happened to make it into our mythology. So what we have is something that doesn't explain these supernatural occurrences, but adds a whole nother set of questions to them, because sometimes the plasma decides to speak to people. And now, getting back to what you were saying, if I was the military and I got information on all of this, which they've had far longer than any of us have, I would definitely be conducting experiments to find out how to weaponize it. And I kind of wonder if that's what you might have witnessed. But
abusing and torturing it, because if it's sentient life and if it's this divine interdimensional thing, to take it in its essence and to squeeze it for every drop.
Right. It's not good. Now, especially knowing that it can fire back. This is far more intelligent than we are. If we consider the particles in one of these cordyceps clouds, it would dwarf every human brain on Earth in amount of neurons that it has within its plasma body. And that's just talking about the invisible plasma blobs in space, not the stars or the sun, which are, of course, also all completely made of plasma. It might be sentience all the way up and all the way down.
This is biblical. I don't know what more people need to see this shit. Like, we're just a couple thousand years down the line.
Right. Especially with what you're saying about squeezing out every drop, because it's no longer for proof anymore. It seems like we got the proof and now we're trying to weaponize it. And for that matter, what we consider to be proof as a species is rather disturbing, because, there's a scalp of Bigfoot in the Tibetan mountains. They've got it. They tested the DNA. It came back, like Gigantopithecus or something like that, not human. Jeez. And we've got all these different. You can go on with all the things that we have proof of, but we, as a community, as a society, as a species, don't consider it proof. Why not? Is because it's not locked in a cage. We can't poke it with a stick. We can't prod it with a scalpel. We can't enslave it, throw a chain around its neck and look at what are you going to do for us? Now that is considered proof to us if we can throw it in a cage and torture it. I don't like the implications of what that means for mankind whenever we can have enough evidence that would cause something to be proven true in a court of law, but we don't consider it proof until we can literally smash it down into a box.
And it just scares me to think of all the abuses like AI and consciousness, chimera projects, plasma at this point, if it's sentient, all these life forms that we're creating or discovering and locking in that box. In the alien video I have uploaded on my channel, at the end, there's one where there's an alien interrogation and they have it hooked up to a heartbeat monitor. And they said that Lloyd Austin was allegedly in the room. And this thing's coughing, it's gasping for air. It shouldn't even be opening its mouth because allegedly it doesn't even communicate with words. It's telepathic, and they had a psychic reader in the room. And this poor thing is fucking struggling. I see no difference between that and some migrant locked in a fucking prison with the guards. Like I don't know. It just felt, I believe in the video. I think it's real. And it felt like watching some sort of torture. And, there's a lot of speculation that the government has a lot of really nice facility, regal looking areas, bringing aliens to buildings and homes and housing that is meant to demonstrate what humanity can do, but simultaneously keeping them prisoner, because we're not going to let you leave until we know what the fuck you are. Right. And that's going to open up a whole new world. We want to sit here and fight over all these trans, gay, and racial issues in the United States, which, yes, there are things that need to be addressed and responsibly. And we really need to have a focus on that. I'm not saying throw all that out the window for aliens and AI and plasma speculation. But what I am saying is, if this is real, there's more abuse happening in this country and on this planet than we give credit for. And these people are darker than we thought. And wouldn't we owe it to those forms of life to demonstrate that there is some good in humanity and that we can strive to do better?
Yeah.
I don't know, because I take a lot of this very, very seriously. I'm not the kind to sit back and be like, do UFOs exist or aliens real? Yes, it's all fucking real. It's interdimensional. It's from outer space. It's under the sea. It's all of it. And it's going to explode with how nuanced it's going to become that we're not going to be able to handle it. But we should probably start gearing ourselves up for it, because for as amazing as a lot of this is, I think there's going to be a lot of sadness associated with the truth when we find it out.
It'll be sad for people who have categories. That will be, I think, the cornerstone struggle of people in their psyche that causes depression is those who have categories up in their mind, which are, by the way, arbitrary, and they always have been. That's what we tend to do, is say that, this is an alien, this is a spirit, this is a poltergeist, this is an angel, this is a demon. And we have it filed away in a really nice file cabinet in alphabetical order. And, it's like, okay, yeah, we're ready to see it now. No, you're not. Because once you find out that it's all exactly the same thing, and we are consciously just a speck of dust in that pool of chaos, well, that's going to be a bit disheartening when you find out that your guardian angel is also simultaneously what has been called, I don't know, one of the many species of aliens that people are, concocting up nowadays. I don't really buy all of it, but I am curious about a lot of it. I have certain hunches and notions here and there, but I try to stop myself. Like, I had a long spiel where I felt like the Greys were kind of vegetable biologic robots that were drones, basically, that they were remote controlled from something that could not have physical matter, like something that couldn't exist within tangible reality, wanted to enter this reality, so they needed a drone of some kind. Right. And it does make sense on a lot of levels for that to be. But I didn't stay locked in my own conclusion because I didn't want that moment to come where I found out that, I hypothesized about it on the show, but I also made a little disclaimer saying, I don't know. I know that they're here. I mean, that goes without saying by now. And that's the struggle I think we have with a lot of people who are, say, watching the news or watching TV shows or whatever else, going to bars. All of this is spilling out so quickly that they're missing the gradual growth of this into the collective consciousness of humanity, that one day, by the time they realize anything is happening, it's going to be in bed with them.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's good to not get stuck on your theories. I even had to go back and put a little disclaimer in one of my videos because with the Miami Mall aliens, I'm not focused on the giant walking shadows that were happening out in front of the mall. I'm concerned with the spider-like beings with the three tails and the black bodies that came off it. I had two separate videos, and I tried to AI enhance them to see if I could get them a little crisper. And the only thing that would make a difference in the AI enhanced versions, two separate videos from, I believe, two separate people, was there was a silver piece on the back of the shoulder. And it was really weird, but it kind of helped solidify for me, well, if these both have this weird silver piece when I AI enhance, that just tells me that this is a piece of technology that these things have, and this might be credible evidence that this is something. But from my reading of the KGB Book of Alien Races, I'm like, I believe that this is the Indigo. I believe that they come from the moon. I believe that they set up a base in Antarctica and became to be known as the Tall Whites. You take the Miami Mall coordinates and you flip them in reverse, you go straight to the heart of Antarctica. So it's almost like these things were toying with people and just kind of being like, well, let's see what happens. And for there to be hundreds of police cars there that were already had an automatic response of like going around this thing and gathering it. Out of all the riot footage that I watched and out of everything that I was a part of in the 2020s and before, I never saw a police response like that. Not in Minneapolis, not in Portland, not anywhere.
So it might be
everything that I read from the KGB book. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I apologize. I thought you were coming to an end there, but it seems as if it's a study of human behavior.
Yeah. Just from the things I've noticed, it's just like if our cities are burning, like, wouldn't that be the proper response as opposed to what we actually got when the burning was happening? it seems like the police departments know a lot more in regards to this than we know. Maybe it even has to do with why they've been getting militarized over the last few years and getting all the tanks and weapons.
Mhm.
But yeah, as far as that, it's just as far as me like naming it the indigo and just saying like that's what I believe it is. That's mostly because here in 20 years, I kind of hope we know for sure what it is, and I want to know how right or wrong that I am. And I think that's
Sure.
the
Yeah.
place we need to
So
keep
yeah.
ourselves in the speculation.
Yeah, you give yourself the speculation, write it down, have it on record, that this was said. And I mean, I've covered things on the channel as wild as, uh channeling even, and that's something I would have never touched upon if it wasn't for like Edgar Casey and Nikola Tesla and people who have surefire results of their channeling. However, that takes you down a rabbit hole of some lady named Sherry who's got an ankh on her neck, and she says she can channel your old grandma for $50 an hour or whatever. It gets a lot of loose ends, and it puts a bad name in the pool for everybody else who might be curious, or especially those who might have the abilities nowadays. Imagine what I guess Ingo Swann kind of lucked out because he had a good career and everything, but I can't imagine somebody at the age of, 20 or whatever, realizing that they have these potential abilities or can hear. I mean, what do you think is going to happen if somebody's actually hearing messages from the subtle causal realms and they try to communicate that to anybody? They're going to go into a padded room or worse. And if somebody is genuinely able to channel, well, no, channel some higher powers, a message from, Thoth or whatever you want, if there is something that ever comes up that's legitimate, it's not going to be taken seriously because it's already been cashed in on so many different things. And a lot of those things themselves might be a study of how humans react. I mean, look at who was that painter, Pollock? You know,
Jackson Pollock.
Jackson Pollock, right? He basically shit on a fucking canvas, and it was just straight garbage, wall to wall. And his paintings sold for millions, and people will literally to this day defend and say, no, it's about the brushstrokes. It's about how he did his motions, and they'll lie to themselves because there's a public opinion that this painting is a masterpiece. And come to find out that Jackson Pollock's success was a CIA experiment to see if they could the Russians were fucking with the Americans to see if they would I guess buckle under peer pressure. To say
Let's go into depth on that one a little bit because I wanna hear a little bit more about that because that's wild.
Well, yeah. So, all right. So, for example, my daughter is in art school. She's a graphics designer and everything, and she's got art teachers who will literally they'll go about explaining why Jackson Pollock is art, and they've got a million reasons for it. All of which, if you can see the fucking thing, fall through. It doesn't make any fucking sense. It's garbage. So you can present them with the documents showing that his success, he was a real person, by the way, and he was a real artist, just not very good. But the CIA was looking around saying, okay, we're trying to fuck with the Russians. They're trying to fuck with us. Let's see if we can also study what people think. And it's a social experiment. Can we start a trend from straight garbage? So
That's what they did with Andy Warhol too, because I think Andy Warhol was a part of that, if I'm not mistaken.
I see. Right. Well, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I'm not too familiar with him, but they started a campaign. They made his paintings $1 million just out of nowhere. It caught on. They started giving out the reasons why they were good. And lo and behold, to this day, teachers in my daughter's art class are still lying to themselves and to each other on the notion that this painting of splattered paint is good. It's absolutely maddening. I mean, unless you're disconnected from it, then it's amusing. But I, in a way, kind of find it to be maddening, because that experiment proves to me that there are people in this world who will stick up for a notion that they don't believe, because those people don't really enjoy Jackson Pollock paintings. There's no way you could. It's spatter. It doesn't make any sense. But they were told that it was something. So maybe somewhere deep down inside, they believe it. I don't know. But if that's the case, it's way worse than I thought.
Well, see, and what I wonder is because who Andy Warhol is, he's the guy who came up with the Campbell's soup can. So he did a lot of commercialization products, and a lot of the type of art styles that you see in art school, like when you have like the portrait, and it's the same portrait in 4 different panels, and it's different color skin background. I believe that's Andy Warhol. So you see a lot of his artwork and his practices getting put into art as well. Right. So that's why I'm just kind of wondering, because you're talking about swallowing bullshit. Well, what bullshit do we swallow more than American food products? You know, he was kind of the one who kind of helped launch like branding illustration like that.
It's insane. And once you understand that tactic of being told something is normal, or worse, being told that something is good, you kind of look around a little bit and you start to say, where can this be used against me in my real life? And man, you ain't got to look very far. Look at insurance companies. What is going on? I have never at all understood the psychological ability of people to accept what insurance companies even are in the first place. Because first of all, okay, well, let's get down to it. It's illegal not to give them money, right? It's literally, you go to jail if you don't give this group of people money, the insurance company. It's illegal. But they are not required to offer you a service from that money at all. They don't have to. They make the laws, right? And here's where it gets even more bizarre. If you commit insurance fraud, you go to fucking jail. Right? If you want to cash in an extra $2,500 so you mimic a little something, a fender bender on your car or whatever, you go to fucking jail, dude. You go to fucking prison. Meanwhile, the insurance companies are literally, as we speak right now, in their offices currently trying to concoct more ways to commit fraud onto us completely legally. And we just stand by and we let it happen to us. And it makes you wonder about, just makes you wonder about everything else, you know, from social media all the way to standing in line. We don't have to, that's a dumb one to bring up, but think about it for a second. We don't have to stand in line anymore. And that is, when you really get down that rabbit hole, it starts to bug you a little bit. You know, we have better technology. Traffic lights. You ever pulled up to a red light that's red and there's no fucking cars going adjacent to you? Why? Yep. We don't need that anymore. There's better ways to do this. You know, we are stuck in our little hamster wheel, not questioning all these little bitty things, you know, except for Quick Trip. They figured it out. You don't have to stand in line at Quick Trip. So let's figure out what they're doing and maybe apply that to everything else in government and politics and science. Let's just find out what Quick Trip's doing, implement that onto everything, and then we're going to be fine.
That's how I feel with Buc-ee's down in Texas. Buc-ee's is like heaven on earth. It's the closest damn thing we got.
Love it. I love it, dude. Everyone's got their home away from home.
Fucking A. No, but you're completely right. It's just, it's all been captured. And this is the part where they want to scream conspiracy theorists, conspiracy theorists. Schools, police department, medical system, insurance, military, heaven, the seas. What more realms do we need conquered here before we kind of be like, they're just kind of going after fucking everything under the sun, like putting commercials into our dreams or into the stars.
Yeah,
that
dude, it's ludicrous, dude. And wait, let's get back to education for a second, because the same observation that you might make about Jackson Pollock or insurance companies or stoplights, it's like you want this child to sit in the chair for 8 hours, a wooden chair, and the back is open on the chair. The back is open right here, and he's sitting behind Jessica. You've seen Jessica's fucking butt. How is he gonna? He's not gonna learn anything. She's wearing yoga pants on Wednesdays. So
well, and these kids here dress like hookers. Like I live close to a high school, and they come out dressed like little whores. I'm sorry,
right.
but
So
some of y'all need to fucking parent your damn kids.
In no way am I saying to censor clothing or anything like that. It would be ridiculous. Yeah. But my point is that whenever the child, whenever the child acts like he doesn't want to sit in that chair all day, we act like that's weird. The reason we act like that's weird is because we've been told that it's normal to do so. It ain't. And it's a problem. So it makes you question ADD. What is ADD? Does ADD mean that I don't want to sit in a wooden chair for 8 hours? Because I beg to differ. Now, I'm not saying that ADD doesn't exist, but I certainly know for damn sure that not wanting to sit in a chair for 8 hours doesn't constitute for any sort of mental illness whatsoever. And it's meant to smash you into that box to make you, alert to a ding, like Pavlov's dog, and just do whatever the hell you're told. Because if you don't sit in that chair, despite how bad your back is hurting or your boner is flying through your pants because of Jessica's ass, well, that you're going to be met with punishment if you fail at any part of this entire thing. And what does failure mean? Failure in this case means getting something wrong. Can you imagine anything more weird than us putting all kids, all children into a big cement building and then telling them to get everything right? And if they don't get it right, even if it is wrong, then they're in detention. More of the same. We are literally ruining the minds of human beings of the future with this bullshit, the same way that church ruins spirituality by shoving us into a chair and telling us what to do. It's a complete waste of time and effort. But as somebody might say, the system's not broken. It's working just fine for those who implemented it.
Well, everything you just described with school is everything that had to do with COVID. I mean, the way we're told, don't ask questions, sit down, go about like everything you just said, just apply it in terms of the pandemic. Like they've trained us.
I'm not sure what is this COVID thing? I haven't heard of it.
I don't know. I don't even know if it's real. And there goes everything off YouTube. We're struck.
Was that on the news recently? I think I saw a thing. I don't know. Well,
it was like a blip and it was gone, but some people freaked out about it. Yeah, no, it's just like, and you're not even getting factory workers anymore. Now you're just getting revolutionary dropouts. Yeah. Is what you're getting. No one's going into the workforce off this shit anymore. They're once they hit freshman, sophomore year, they're out. Some of them even sooner. And you have them doing things like sell drugs or getting out into the streets. Here in Oregon, you have a homeless culture that will literally embrace you. So kids are doing it just because it's the thing to do.
Sure.
So it's like, and it makes you wonder how long that's been in the works, probably since the assassination of JFK, if not sooner. But it seems like they just wanted us all to be at war with each other. And now what I see coming out of the schools is just revolutionaries and anger and hatred and really all these satanic elements of queer Marxism that have gotten into people's heads. And it's just, and it happened so quickly after we took God out of schools, after we took religious thinking out of schools, saying one nation under God isn't to say one nation under our God. It's to say one nation under a creator that humanity has no say over. So this invisible thing, whether it's real or not, protects you and your liberties. That was all it was to say. And for that to be stripped out, I spoke with someone recently who said that they were even, I think it was like out of West Point. They took that out of one of their pledges or creeds, and they weren't doing that anymore, the under God thing. And it's like, as soon as they're able to do that and to get the sense of wonder out of these kids' heads and to start propagating them with all their bullshit, that's how the darkness gets in. And then, before I was an Antifa and all this extremist bullshit, these were the kind of things that I was focused in on day in and day out. Psychedelics, the occult, the esoteric, spiritual stuff. And then I dropped off. And where did I go? Straight down that dark path. And now that I'm getting back, I'm trying to get deeper into it and to learn from people like yourself. But
the world is getting a little bit safer to come out saying what you're saying now. And that's a good thing. But if I might, can I play devil's advocate with you on one particular note?
Please.
About the under God thing, taking it out of the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm in no way, shape, or form an extremist of anything. I am a bookworm. That's it. But if we want to get to the core of the trouble of that matter, we might look at the first part of the damn thing, which is pledging allegiance to a cloth. I think right off the bat, we're off to a weird, specific, strange start. You can take out the under God, take out all the this and that, but it kicks off with I pledge allegiance to the flag. Right off the bat, that's weird. And I mean, it's not weird to us. Again, this is one of those things where you got to zoom out, act like you're an alien being, act like from a real sidereal point of view, looking in, act like you've never seen human pattern conditioning in your life. And then with those fresh eyes, look in and watch people say, I pledge allegiance to a flag, to a cloth, to a piece of fabric. That's going to be weird to you. But we have been programmed to feel like it's not weird. And by the way, don't get me wrong, I pledge allegiance to the flag every Thursday, the first Thursday of every month. But that is a tradition that's been held for a long time within my union. And I'm nobody to disrespect that. But I am somebody to at least look at it and say, that seems weird to me, you know? And to me, it's okay to say that. It's a freedom of speech. I might get my teeth knocked out. That's still freedom of speech because freedom of speech doesn't have a dental plan. That's part of it, and I respect that. But it's okay to say something about this is kind of weird, you know? And it doesn't work. Making kids pledge allegiance to something works about as good as our DARE programs did. It really works as an accelerant in the opposite direction. So why, you know?
Yeah. And for the audience out there, I'll consider myself Gnostic on that point, because that's all very valid points. And for me, like I said, going extremism into more of a place of appreciating your country, like same, pledge allegiance to the flag. I'll actually cheer when the national anthem plays now. There's a sense of tradition there, and it's kind of
right.
I take it as a sign of something I tried to attack at one point in time that now I've come to terms with.
Right.
But I would 100% see your point.
That,
you know?
Right. I would see, like, to me, America is the greatest social experiment on earth. What America represents is a fucking beautiful thing. I'm talking about, like, give us your poor, you're rejected, anyone who isn't cutting it in society. We've got a safe place for you here. That's amazing. Back in the day, they didn't fucking like taxes. The whole idea of America, I fucking love that shit. I do, like, deep down in my heart, I love that shit. I'm a fucking American, and I'm proud of all of that heritage there, and it is heritage. But when you pledge allegiance to a flag, whenever that country starts to turn and twist into something you don't like, you've pledged your allegiance to it. Now it's the same as those countries you escaped.
Yeah, and the flag that we're pledging to now is a very different flag than what was being pledged to in World War II. Again, this was a whole political assassination and president later, years down the line. Like, we are pledging to new leaders, to new ideals, to what seems to be a communist takeover in a lot of cases in a lot of places right now. But, you know, I do think it's a fair point, because while there is that sense of tradition and meaning, it can also be hijacked, because it's not something like the cross or spiritual symbols like the flower of life that kind of go through time, and there's these symbols that you can meditate on and think on and gather yourself around and bring to yourself a story or sense of connection. These things are man-made. And I mean, what is the 666? It's man, it's Satan, it's the beast. It's the beast comes from mankind itself, because we are tainted. We are those who are given free will and choice. And there will be elements of those who use that free will and choice for darkness, which is, I mean, look at the LGBT community. It's Pride Month right now. Everyone's walking around with fretted kids with dildos sticking out of their asses downtown every freaking state right now. It's disrespectful. You know, our community's been hijacked the same way the church has. Everything everyone loves. Star Wars. I'm going to watch The Acolyte after this tonight. I am praying to God that they don't ruin it. Like watching Tales of the Empire the other week, I'm just getting ear raped with they, and I'm just like, it's just too much, and I'm just like, please don't ruin this. Please don't ruin this. I have so little in this world. Please don't ruin this. There is no depth to what they will pervert, distort, and try to conquer.
There's nothing
I think is
sacred.
important to remember as we nothing. Except for the initial messages, things like Jesus Christ and the Buddha. Sorry, go ahead.
Though, yeah, no, those origins of things, you know, they can't really. Well, they have. I understand that they have. That's what the church currently does: is taint those things, and they make money from it and everything like that. But at the same time, whenever a movie decides to destroy a mythology by making it current in any direction or the other, even if right now whatever rightism, whatever it is called, is like flourishing the way whatever else is, it doesn't matter which direction. If you take it in a certain direction or another, it's going to pervert the mythology of the Star Wars, you know, thing that they got going on, which I believe is the Mahabharata, if I'm not mistaken. But they're the ones making the movie, and they're free to do what they want to do with it. And at which point it's like, damn. And I hate to beat a dead horse here, but we're gonna find ourselves with the books again, because all of the Star Wars mythology is in books, and those books are good. You know,
yeah,
and
I have 80 plus of them on a bookshelf. Like I have so much of it, and I'm gonna get hundreds more. My goal before I die is to have the entire expanded universe collection. Like I'm going through New Jedi Order right now, and then High Republic, which is Disney era, but New Jedi Order is a very relevant series at this point in time. Like the old school stuff was just primo. Oh yeah, it has to do with a secret invasion coming in from outside the galaxy. No one knows what's happening. Turns out they were on the inside sabotaging everything from the very beginning.
Oh wow.
And it's like, yeah, the enemies are like Hellraiser mixed with the Flood from Halo. And it's like, oh, it's so good. The Yuzon Vong, it's all about pain rituals and tormenting themselves to the point of gaining their god's acceptance and having to die in battle and torturing Jedi, but also simultaneously going in as reptilian shapeshifters with I think they're called Uglith cloakers. They put on and they shapeshift into humans, and they pretend to be Imperial officers, and they're basically setting off apocalypses all across the galaxy, and everyone's just like, what the fuck is happening? And it's like, it's over 20 books, I think, and it's a great series.
Well, they've certainly expanded upon, you know, what the original things were, and that's exciting. And I see clearly that Star Wars takes a lot of its inspiration from Gnostic literature, ancient religions, and the esoteric, and even a little bit of conspiracy too. You know,
well, George Lucas, he studied under Joseph Campbell, so he was a student of his.
The hero's journey is literally what, I mean, well, a lot of things are. But yeah, and if you get a chance, check out the Mahabharata is a bit long, but the Bhagavad Gita, however, is translated to English, and that's it's not too long of a read. It's an average book size, and read that, and then watch Star Wars, the second one with Yoda and Luke together.
Okay.
I think it's Return of the Jedi, and
Empire Strikes Back.
Empire Strikes Back. Yeah. So read one and then watch the other. And it's amazing how absolutely similar they are. The names have changed, but the story is the same, as they say. And
interesting.
Oh, what was I going to say before the Joseph Campbell thing? Oh, I was excited. Now, a lot of people, the new Star Wars movies, they don't like them, and I get it, whatever. But on I think it was Rogue One or something like that, they found out that the weapons makers were supplying weapons to both sides, the rebellion and also
the Last Jedi, where they're like, they're manufacturing TIE fighters and X-Wings. What did you expect?
So yeah, they even dip into conspiracy a little bit. And and I was surprised to see. So the movie kind of sucked, but the newest Jurassic Park, I see these movies. I take my son to the movie theaters, you know.
And I still love these movies too. For all my critiques with Disney, I see every Star Wars day one. As soon as they happen, I go to the movie theaters, I buy the tickets, I'm there. Like all my criticisms aside, fanboy through and through.
Nothing wrong with that, right? So, but I was surprised as hell to see in a Jurassic Park movie. It's supposed to be about dinosaurs getting loose, and that's about it. That's the plot. They had these bugs that would go around destroying crops if the crops wasn't owned by some company that I think even rhymed with Monsanto. Like, I was like, damn.
Oh, that's like the one Jurassic Park I ain't seen. I need to check that one out.
Dude, I mean, don't get the movie wasn't very good, but that part though, everybody in the theaters was like, "What is the bugs and crops? What's going on? Like, this is dumb." I was like, "That's the only part of the movie that's good."
Huh? Or like Godzilla and Kong, the way they did Hollow Earth for both of those movies. Oh my god,
yes.
that's how I want Hollow Earth.
Yeah, right. Oh, I loved it. That was great. Did you see Moonfall with Halle Berry?
No, I saw the preview for it though. That looked amazing.
Dude, it's all Gnostic. If you were to replace a Gnostic not like the Gospel of Thomas or like maybe a little bit of the Gospel of John, the way it's described to him from that being. But if you take the Gnostic mythology, I should say, that's been passed down, and then apply technological terms to it, like AI and stuff, boom, you've got Moonfall, and it ties in moon lore, and it's an overall good movie. It didn't do very good in the box office, I think, but I mean, you've got Gnostic lore, and you got Halle Berry looking fine as fuck at 60 years old. I mean, what do you want, you know?
She's doing pretty damn well. And I mean, these movies too, whenever you like take the deeper meaning to shit too, like my grandma and I, we went to go see Noah back when that came out years ago.
Yeah.
The one with Russell Crowe.
Right.
Had no idea we were going to see the Nephilim. And I had never seen my grandma go off about aliens before like that. She was all of a sudden talking about the falling beings and the Gnostic texts. And I'm just like, Grandma, I thought you used to condemn people like this. And she's just like, no, it's all the same. She's like, that was a good representation. I never thought of them as rocks, but... And that was amazing to see that spark that inside of her and to see me like kind of respond to it. And it's just like, that's a magical thing because we're expanding on the question at that point.
It's awesome. And that's what the people get mad at the movie Noah because they took liberties to make them from rocks or whatever, but they got to fill the gaps somehow, and they're not going to nail it. They're not, these are all inspirational. These are all meant to do exactly what you said, which is to spark inspiration. They're interpretations of the original source. We're not going to create the original source. That's not going to happen. It won't ever happen either. So the best we can do is to elaborate on those things based on our collective archetypes that we have evolved to this day. And that's exactly what they do with some of these movies. And I feel like they hit a home run. If they get it wrong, well, so did the mythologies, because the mythologies are just adaptations of archetypes that have been before them, you know? And that's all we're doing is we're trading mythologies, sparking the questions, and creating these bonds between us and Grandma, who once upon a time didn't have a link, but now it does. And to me, that's what mythology is. That's what it's for in the first place, is to learn these things about ourselves, that we see something external, it causes a reaction internally within us, and that's an archetype right there. That's something that we can work with. It becomes a tool. And if that tool brings you closer together with Grandma, fuck yeah, even better.
Hell yeah. And another one that was really good for her, Life of Pi. And this isn't to slander my grandma, but she used to get really angry at the Buddhists. She didn't have nice things to say about the Buddhist temples or the Muslims. Life of Pi opened her eyes up a little bit, because it opens you up to the idea of different theologies and seeing stories through different perspectives. And I think my concern in the modern moment is the corporations. I do see them kind of as satanic elements. I do see the bigwigs as kind of taking over everything. Look at Justice League, for example, the original versus the Snyder Cut. How many Snyder Cuts have we lost? You have a film that's just complete, goofy, colorful, joking nonsense, which it's fun, but it wasn't Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, and then the concluding of the trilogy. It was its own thing entirely that was taken on by a panicking corporation that literally hired the Suicide Squad trailer editors to edit what was filmed of the rest of Zack Snyder's movie after he dropped the project. What you get in the end is a 3-hour film that tackles so many different philosophical elements, mythological elements, and it just goes deeper than all hell. Have you watched the Snyder Cut at all?
I haven't seen
By chance?
really any like superhero movies, unfortunately, unless you count like Godzilla.
If you make one I would say if you make one superhero movie you watch, or maybe even a few, the Man of Steel trilogy, it's Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, and then Justice League. The Snyder Cut's the real one. But if you want to see the power of corporations and how they distort mythology, watch the original Justice League and then watch the Snyder Cut. I think it's on Netflix. But this man's daughter committed suicide, and he was then forced off the project, the director Zack Snyder, and then bullied by the corporations, faced all sorts of abuse, and it took the fans literally getting planes in the skies over Comic-Con in China and San Francisco and all over saying, release the Snyder Cut, and putting that out for years. The corporations, the corporation, Warner Brothers, they gaslit the fans for years. They're like, it doesn't exist, it doesn't exist, it doesn't exist. And then occasionally there was a leak of a black and gray image that would come out of something like Jon Stewart as Green Lantern, or a crazy scene that somebody wanted to see that didn't happen. And then eventually over time, Zack Snyder kind of fueled into it. And the fan rage and passion over the project outpoured so hard that Warner Brothers buckled the knee, and then they released the Snyder Cut. And it's clear from the initial version, they took all the God out of it. They took the mythology. They took the politics. They took the deep thinking. They took it all out. They made a dead Joss Whedon film where people fall face first into chicks' boobs and have butt jokes and crap humor, and it was just an eyesore. And to see what corporations can do, and you think of, so like I love projects like Star Wars, but Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker, there was an original script called Duel of the Fates that was infinitely better, where they were all going to get together, the old stormtroopers that had rebelled, and they were going to get together all these different factions, and they were going to go march on Coruscant, and they were going to bring down the Empire there while Rey was off dealing with Palpatine somewhere. Disney said no and gutted the project, and then we got what we got. So it's like they're targeting mythology right now.
Did you know that action movie scripts have to be filtered through the Pentagon?
Really?
Yeah. So there is, oh my goodness, I'm on the phone right now with you, and I've got the documents on my phone, and I don't have anything memorized, but
send them my way.
I'll send them to you and everything. But there's a particular number. It's a percentage of like action and superhero movies that have been vetted by the Pentagon, and the number is so large that it makes it really seem like that might be a requirement for certain movies, and it's the Pentagon specifically. And the Pentagon, of course, is a military, industrial complex, and that's another thing that's just weird to me, that we would have to vet our art and our mythology and our creative works through a military complex whose one and only notion is to create wars. In a way, I suppose the goal might be to gain public opinion for war, but there's a lot of movies that we just mentioned that rail against those type of things like the Pentagon. So, I mean, who's to say? Did that Star Wars movie where they found out that the weapons were being sold to both sides, did that get vetted by the Pentagon? Because if so, maybe the objective isn't what I think it is, but the only information out there is that a certain amount of action movies have been scripted, sent to the Pentagon, annotated, and then sent back.
Well, what that makes me wonder, because before, that just horrifies me, because The Last Jedi, for example, I never considered the Pentagon, because what I was reading at the time was that there was Chinese and foreign business executives that were coming in. So they were funneling thousands, if not millions of dollars into this film, right? They had really weird requirements for right down to Luke's Force Ghost being a weird color blue. Little things that the average viewer wouldn't nitpick, but hardcore fans would. Turned out there was foreign business executives' fingerprints on. And one of the things with the Chinese Communist Party and other nations is a lot of these films they look at it as a form of idol worship. So there are military and government moves that are, well, military. There are government plans in place in various communist nations, from my understanding, that see films in the United States of America, such as Star Wars, such as the superhero lore, as being something that the public worships, and it takes away its focus from putting your work in, from being a part of the greater collective. And so part of me wonders if there's like some sort of competition to where there's foreign aspects from outside of the United States that are nitpicking and kind of dictating what happens with these movies, and then there's also simultaneously the Pentagon, and part of me wonders how much of that is in coordination with each other, or if it's conflicting areas of interest and who wins out in the end. That's interesting.
That is, I would love to know if it was a cooperative system or a conflicting system. That is a great question. I would love to know as well. That's fascinating.
This shit is just so wild, this world we live in. And again, this is why they don't want us asking questions. This is why we're just a couple of racist white guys by the end of this video.
Hey, bro. Hey, I'm Hungarian, so I get to keep. I keep.
Oh, my apologies. Right there. Apologies. I think I got like 60% Mexican. You can't see it. I don't claim it, but for the sake of calling me racist people, please don't.
Well, I think the point I think the point we're trying to make is that we're all mutts, so we can pretty much drop the race card any point now. Like, I mean, there's as many different types of Caucasian people as there are types of Black people, and it's really, I guess, I don't know, maybe that's a path we shouldn't walk down, but in the end, we're all just mutts of each other. And here's the good news, though. Once we're all mutts, what
the fuck do we fight over?
Right. What's left to fight over? It's about, we're all done. We got it, Now we can move on to sexism, which is just way more fun, Yeah,
no, that's the thing. That's a big message I want to be on this channel. Drop your fucking bullshit and just start having fun. Ask questions about things that pique your interest, be it aliens or demonology or spirituality or Christianity. Like,
right.
We just got to follow our passions at this point, because everything else is just kind of bullshit.
Right. Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss. Let it take you wherever it leads, follow it intuitively, not with, your strenuous side trying to make something work, but follow it, in the way of Wu Wei, where you follow it the way a child would following a bug. It's you want to do it in such a way that things get done and work happens, but it doesn't feel like you're grinding away. And that's literally about it. That's what, if everybody was to do that, well, one might make the argument that, we need the trash men. But at the same time, I've seen kids get real excited when the trash guy comes. And it's rad. Kids, when they're babies, they play with dump trucks and construction materials. These are heroes. They got, it's whenever a kid is a baby or whatever, they're not yet wanting to be celebrities or rock stars. They have construction workers, and they want to be cops. They want to be firefighters. They want to be
astronauts, cowboys.
Yeah, right. They don't want to be. And a certain point comes along where that turns into them having to want to become an influencer or something like that. So the argument of, well, we still need trash men, that doesn't really work. Because some kids do want to fucking do that. I remember taking my son outside when the trash man came. The big robot arm came out and fucking did all that shit. My son was like, that's badass. He couldn't talk, but he made the noises, And so it's one of those things where, like, yeah, we can't really make that argument. Oh, we need people to work at Amazon or whatever. That's going to happen. But to follow your bliss certainly does open up avenues of things you can do simultaneously. I'm a construction worker, and here I am talking to you.
Mhm.
One occupation might take over the other one, but I have a passion for architecture, and so I loved glass buildings. So I went into, make glass buildings. And it's been great. It's been fantastic. It
That
got
sounds
me
awesome.
where I am. Yeah, I love it. I built fucking skyscrapers and shit. I'm fucking hanging off a fucking rope 14 stories in the earth, in the fucking air. I can see the
One of those
curvature of the earth.
motherfuckers. I always look at those people and I'm like, yep, give them $1 million.
Right. So I
Fuck
mean,
that.
yeah, and it does, and that's a passion. It's a passion of mine, that one of those things where the argument doesn't work. Like, whoa, where, if everyone follows their dreams, where are we going to get construction workers, motherfucker? Some people love hanging from the top of a building. Now this thing I'm doing now is really, really cutting into that time in construction. I haven't really been doing much work lately, but I mean, I'm following my bliss wherever it takes me, and as this starts to take over more and more, I'm letting it happen.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling with this channel. It's like when I'm not doing this, I'm dishwashing and I'll sit by and my husband will come by and he's like, you've been on the computer for 10 hours, right? And I'm just like,
Yeah.
holy shit, I thought it was 2. And like,
Right.
I'm not making a dime from this channel. I don't think in my current predicament I should be making any money off of this channel, but it still feels like it doesn't feel like work. It is work, but it just feels so fun and so engaging. And I feel like I'm getting new skills out of it and I'm getting to meet new
Right.
people. And I
Right.
feel like when you have 2 different avenues, you have your passion and then you have your, let's say, civic duty.
Right.
Having both of those and being able to fall on one or another in a time of need, like when you have just your work or just a hobby and not a job, well, what do you have to fall back on when you start falling astray? Nowhere. You just kind of fall off into a pit, and
Right.
then maybe you can grab back that thing.
Right.
Sometimes you can't, but
This is the
yeah, it's all about balance.
the Buddhists, they call it dharma. They say don't forget about the dharma, because if you're like, oh, I'm gonna be a enlightened fucking yogi and sit cross-legged, and it's real quick to get whopped on the head by a real Zen master saying, what the fuck are you doing? Are you gonna let society just collapse? What are we doing? Are we catering to you now? No, don't forget about the dharma. You've got to put something out there that's, that is contributing to society, unless you want to move to the mountains and then, do your thing up there. But if you're going to sit here in the streets of civilization and enjoy all of these fruits, don't forget about the dharma, and that's another argument I think people need to remember whenever they say that argument, who's going to be the trash man? Well, that's dharma right there. So really the real poison of the matter is people who want to be celebrities for the sake of being a celebrity, or an influencer for the sake of being an influencer, where you don't have to lift a finger to do anything, and I know that there's like a lot of people on the internet, the TikTok .com, where they watch people's videos and then they get paid, and that has always fascinating me too. The same as insurance companies, or the way that other things kind of fascinate me in a way that I'm confused over. Okay, right on. Uh it's very strange where remind me what I was fucking was what was it I was talking about?
Oh shit! You were
Damn
saying
it, Tom.
in the
What?
same way of insurance companies. What was the same as
Oh,
insurance?
the TikTokers. Yeah. They
TikTokers, yes. I've been smoking a little bit of
the,
pot while we've been talking.
yeah. The TikTokers will watch my videos and then get more views on TikTok than I did on the video.
Oh,
So
that's
those
gotta hurt.
people, yeah, those people who are watching the TikTok guy, are they not curious? Like the guy, I've got more of that video if you're curious over here on YouTube, but they just watch the TikToker, and the TikToker's job is to watch the video. Okay, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm old, but I don't get it.
Well, I think in some cases it can be genuine passion. There's some of the Star Wars channels I'll follow, like Star Wars Theory. He'll dissect Star Wars and play Star Wars and stuff, and I'll go in there and I'll enjoy that. But I think for a lot of the TikTok stuff, for what they're doing, said, a lot of this indoctrination in the schools, a lot of the shit they've been getting into their heads, now that the politics has gotten involved, it's almost just kind of like they're little smear campaigners at this point. Or like I said, it could be passionate and be like, this is this genuine guy creating this genuine project. But a lot of the time it's, this is shit, this is racist, this is bigoted, this is garbage, and here's why. And then there seems to be like a pylon at that point.
I see.
And
Right.
it seems to be like a well, it's marketing. It's what Disney does to a lot of its actors, like She-Hulk. The whole time leading up to She-Hulk, they were like, fuck men. Men are going to hate this because they're men. You get to the middle of the show, and there's literally a TikTok compilation of different people talking shit about She-Hulk, about how she's just a Hulk who gets, or a woman who gets Hulk's powers, and they're talking all sorts of misogynistic crap. That was real TikToks and real online posts that they took during their hate marketing campaign. So while they were getting everybody riled up on all this anti-men shit, they took people's responses from TikTok, some of the ones that looked a little more misogynistic and some that were, but they actually put it into She-Hulk.
Really? Wow.
Mm-hmm. And I bet you they got paid for it too. But, I mean, even though it's like in the opposite direction, it's them talking shit. It's like hate marketing is a very, very real thing right now.
Right. That's kind of what Facebook does, and people don't really know it. You know, whenever
and it's designed to on Facebook.
Right.
Sorry.
Right. So, no, yeah, that's I did an experiment. I wanted to. It kind of goes down a double alley here or whatever, but I mean, once upon a time, I was married as well. And my wife would be like, dude, you've been on the computer for 6 hours, because, you know, I was a musician before this, still am, I guess. But yeah, whenever you're doing that, time flies by very quickly. But speaking of her, we did an experiment with Facebook, and it was fucking fascinating. And this is not hard to do. I encourage anybody watching this to do this, and it's super easy, right? So next time you're sitting with your significant other, you've been together for a long time, right? So your phones are right next to each other all of the time, right? Those phones know that you're married. That's for sure. Maybe not married, whatever it is. And she was sitting right there. And as I was scrolling, I saw that our ex-roommate, Devin, she was a 19-year-old girl, blonde. She changed her profile picture to herself in a bathing suit on the beach, right? And I looked at my wife and I said, look at this real quick. I want to test something. But I didn't say out loud what I was doing. So I clicked heart on the profile picture and then kept scrolling. And I told her to as well. And as she scrolled, it wasn't maybe 4, maybe 5 memes went by until the same profile picture came up, and that little list of people who hit the heart button was also there too. And I was one of them. So literally 5 seconds after I hearted a young woman's Facebook profile picture, it practically notified my wife that I did so. That is fascinating to me.
It's just so, it gets so personal with it too. Like, we know who your family is, we know who your friends are, and it's just like, we know everything about, it's literally Big Brother in the palm of our hands. Like, I always say, like, imagine the Jews walking around with us in the 40s, what could have happened? We just kind of openly accept it. Not to bring the Jews into it, because I know they get dragged into a lot of shit these days, but I mean, it's kind of,
yeah. And then what happens if now, by the way, our divorce had nothing to do with any of that. We got a kick out of that. But let's say hypothetically, let's say we split up because of that, right? Well, what is each of us going to do now without each other? We're going to get on Facebook again, because they're just winning. And we're going to look for new partners, new friends, new things to do right there on the very same algorithm that tried to split us up in the first place. They fucking nailed it, dude. I mean, that's the only way to put it. It's not good, but they nailed it. And what a lot of people don't realize is that Facebook is a reflection of it's the same as YouTube. It's giving you more of what you were searching for in the first place. And for the record, surprise, surprise, that's exactly what the universe is doing as well. It's just giving you back more of what you put into it. It's an algorithm, literally.
It's literally like a new universe and a new paradigm is kind of breaking off and being created before our eyes. The way I kind of explain it is, it feels like the apocalypse, but it also feels like Genesis. A lot of the time, in a lot of different avenues.
That's a beautiful way to put it, because I've been advocating for, for everyone thinks society is collapsing and breaking down. And that does happen a lot throughout history, but it doesn't have to. And I think people are coming to the point to where they can see that decline happening. But you know how humans are, man. We're always late. And it's going to be one of those things where it's really close to the end. And then we're all going to kind of snap out of it. And we're going to remember the mythologies, whether it be consciously or not. Those archetypes are going to flood up inside of us. And we're going to live the hero's journey as a society, like a big loop. And we're going to say, there's people in power who are going to prevent this to every measure. But as a collective hive mind, we will see them as the minority. And at that point, it's just game over. You don't have to have an upheaval of society for things to go back to being right. All you have to do is eliminate the kinks in the hose. Wall Street banking, these trust funds, millionaires buying up all the land. If you just eliminate these little kinks, everything will fall into place. And on that note, I think I'm going to get executed. But I mean, for all the right reasons,
Hey, I'm with you. So long as the kiddos live and they got a better world, who gives a shit? For all those who are afraid to open your mouth, like, this is why we have to open our mouth. It's not about our lives. It's about the next lives. And if reincarnation exists, then maybe we can come back. But if not, then there's a heaven on the other side. But really, at the end of the day, we just don't seem to know. And, I think we should probably wrap this up. We've been here for a minute, but I'm very grateful for people like you, staying to asking the question, being true to yourself, being open to ask questions, and just, I don't know, be an inspiration to people like me who need something better than throwing stones or spray painting buildings or screaming or cussing and raging on social media. Like, we need something substantial and sustainable to do, and I think you provide that, and I appreciate that.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I appreciate you for being an example of how a person can change their mind when confronted with new information. That is also very important part of human society that we need to implement, the ability to change our ideas, our ideals, and our minds as we grow and evolve in the world.
I appreciate that, man. That means a lot.
All right.
Well, you guys, I hope you all have a good rest of your night. Yeah, you as well.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Peace and love, man.
Do you know, Asclepius, that Egypt is an image of heaven? Or to speak more exactly, in Egypt, all the operations of the powers which rule and work in heaven are present in the earth below. In fact, it should be said that the whole cosmos dwells in this our land, as in a sanctuary. And yet, since it is fitting that wise men should have knowledge of all events before they come to pass, you must not be left in ignorance of what I will now tell you. There will come a time when it will have been in vain that Egyptians have honored the Godhead with heartfelt piety and service, and all our holy worship will be fruitless and ineffectual. The gods will return from earth to heaven. Egypt will be forsaken, and the land which was once the home of religion will be left desolate, bereft of the presence of its deity. Oh, Egypt, Egypt. Oh, Egypt, Egypt. Oh, Egypt, Egypt. Of thy religion Egypt, Egypt. Oh, Egypt, Egypt. Of thy religion nothing will remain but an empty tale, which thine own children in time to come will not believe. Nothing will be left but graven words, and only the stones will tell of thy piety. And in that day, men will be weary of life, and they will cease to think the universe worthy of reverent wonder and worship. They will no longer love this world around us, this incomparable work of God, this glorious structure which He has built, this sum of good made up of many diverse forms, this instrument whereby the will of God operates in that which He has made, ungrudgingly favoring man's welfare. This combination and accumulation of all the manifold things that call forth the veneration, praise, and love of the beholder. Darkness will be preferred to light, and death will be thought more profitable than life. No one will raise his eyes to heaven. The pious will be deemed insane. The impious wise, the madman will be thought a brave man, and the wicked will be esteemed as good. As for the soul, and the belief that it is immortal by nature, or may hope to attain to immortality, as I have taught you, all this they will mock, and even persuade themselves that it is false. Oh, Egypt, Egypt. Oh, Egypt, Egypt. Oh, Egypt, Egypt. Of thy religion nothing will remain but an empty tale. Oh, Egypt, Egypt. Oh, Egypt, Egypt. Oh, Egypt, Egypt. Of thy religion nothing will remain but no word of reverence or piety, no utterance worthy of heaven will be heard or believed, and so the gods will depart from mankind, a grievous thing. And only evil angels will remain, who will mingle with men and drive the poor wretches into all manner of reckless crime, into wars and robberies and frauds and all things hostile to the nature of the soul. Then will the earth tremble and the sea bear no ships. Heaven will not support the stars in their orbits. All voices of the gods will be forced into silence. The fruits of the earth will rot, the soil will turn barren, and the very air will sicken with sullen stagnation. All things will be disordered and awry. All good will disappear. When all this has befallen Asclepius, then God, the creator of all things, will look on that which has come to pass, and will stop the disorder by the counterforce of his will, which is the good. He will call back to the right path those who have gone astray. He will cleanse the world of evil, washing it away with floods, burning it out with the fiercest fire, and expelling it with war and pestilence. And thus he will bring back his world to its former aspect, so that the cosmos will once more be deemed worthy of worship and wondering reverence. And God, the maker and maintainer of the mighty fabric, will be adored by the men of that day with continuous songs of praise and blessing. Such is the new birth of the cosmos. It is a making again of all things good, a holy and awe-inspiring restoration of all nature. And it is wrought inside the process of time, by the eternal will of the Creator. O Egypt, Egypt. O Egypt, Egypt. O Egypt, Egypt. Of thy religion nothing will remain but an empty tale.